Hello everyone. This is Amol Bhosle, working as assistant professor in SB Patel College of Engineering. Today, I discuss about comparisons of CO2 emission generated when reading documents through electronic devices. So first, we discuss about the CO2 emission generated through the paper as a medium and electronic devices. So these are the following points. Using the publicized data on CO2 emission generated throughout the entire life cycles of some products on the market. Average value of CO2 emission throughout the entire life cycles of computer, display, and printer released in 2008 or later are calculated. So based upon this report, 2008 report, so using each average value of CO2 emission per unit quantity, we can discuss. So these are the values we discuss per device. So that devices, first we device classify in terms of like a computers. So we categorize the computers in two types. These are useful for CO2 emission calculations. So first types is the standard computers with memory capacity up to 4 GB. High performance. Second, high performance computers with memory capacity greater than 4 GB. Then display devices is also plays an important role. So that display devices with resolutions uh, we can consider for the CO2 emission calculation purpose. So these are the CO2 emission calculations we calculated. So based upon 2008 report, we have some calculations. Laptop per unit quantity is emitted the CO2 27.6 gram per hour. Then standard computer 70 inches display is used having a 72 point gram per hour. So high performance computers having a 124.7 gram per hour. Printer is having a 2.58 gram per hour. Then OA paper having a 5 gram per sheet. So these are the devices when we use in any corporate meeting or academic meeting. That time also we noted the some evaluations about the CO2. That evaluations are like a CO2 emissions in a meeting. From this graph, we can learn the number of participants versus CO2 emissions. So these are classified in terms of three types. Paper when we use in a meeting, that time there is a ratio we observe from this graph. So these are linearly increases when we use the paper. Then when we use the a projector or laptop computers, so continually that CO2 emission is a constant. Then third type is a projector and laptop computers for each participant. That time it is started from 200 CO2 emissions. It is a again linearly. But when we observe these three types, that time that a third type a projector and laptop computers for each participant having a more CO2 emissions. So these are the survey about CO2 emissions when we use the computer devices or electronic gadget. So from this we can learn how we avoid the that CO2 emissions or how we optimize the CO2 emissions based upon like as per tradition when we use the paperwork, that time CO2 emission is a lesser. So from uh, this survey we know that paper is used, then CO2 emission is a less. So thanks for these discussions. Thank you.